Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs? Welcome into the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me, as always. Poppin' Rick.
What's up? What's up?
We got buys and sells for you today.
You do.
Fun stuff. We're going to break down some guys that you should target in trades and some guys you should just give away for candy. Maybe not.
Yeah,
maybe
I
not
think I should trade away McCaffrey.
Did you even look at this list?
No, I just pulled it up now. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So no discussions. We're gonna talk about these things.
That's okay.
It's gonna be crazy. But anyway, yeah, so buys and sells should be exciting. Before we jump into our buys and sells, check out our website, fantasygems.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcast platforms, please leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe. Click the bell for notifications, like, comment down below any questions. Thank you for the support. If you comment, we appreciate it.
Yes, we love the comments.
All right, buys and sells. We'll start with the buys, go to sells. This should not be an elongated version of our show. I was gonna say TV show. That doesn't make sense. We don't have a TV show. We have a YouTube channel podcast.
Yes, a TV show. I mean, it would be cool to have a TV show.
Yeah, it would be cool to have a TV show. But anyway, so we're gonna talk about some buys. Number one on the buys list for at least me, because I made the list. Let's see how Rick feels about some of these.
Well, the good thing is I looked at the list and I liked it. So
okay, good. Javonte Williams is the first buy, and so far this season, there's been like Melvin Gordon has been involved. I think a little bit more than people want. I remember back in the beginning of the offseason, Melvin Gordon was a free agent, and Rick and I were all in on Javonte. We were all in on Javonte, regardless of whether he was there or not. But they bring Melvin Gordon back, and so far it's been a pretty even split between Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon to start the season. I'm not really sure what they're intentionally trying to do, but there's a lot of different things going on with Denver that's not great.
Yeah.
Their offense does not, they scored 11 points last week, so that's bad football team stuff. But week one, Javonte had seven rushing attempts, 12 targets, 11 receptions. So he had 18 touches in game one, 16 touches in game two, and he had 18 touches in game three. His snap percentage has been moving up and down all over the place. So, but he had week one, he had 19 points, which I think, obviously that came from his receiving work. But he's had 9 the last 2 weeks, and I feel like, if you spent an early second-round pick on this guy or a mid-second-round pick on this guy, you kind of anticipated getting a little bit more. And I think, buy lows are, sometimes you got to buy low, sometimes you got to buy high, sometimes you just got to get the player that's good. This guy's good, and he has not had a couple of good games. So because of that, you can run out to this person and say, hey, I'll trade for this guy and give him, a slightly less than market value because he has not been performing up to par. So I think he's a great trade target. I think rest of season he's going to be really good. There's not a whole ton of tough games in here besides the Rams game in week 16. So I feel like at this point, Javonte becomes more and more a buy by the day. And then Melvin Gordon is old. There's only so much this dude can handle before he gets hurt. When he was healthy and in his prime getting all of his work, he got hurt at least for 4 to 5 games a year. So at some point this guy will be out. Javonte will run the table and will be good. There's only been 1 rushing touchdown between the two, and Melvin Gordon has it. So hopefully there's more rushing upside. But I feel like Denver has to get better at some point offensively. You would think.
Yeah, no, I think Javonte is a great buy because, as you said, the schedule rest of the season gets pretty easier.
Yeah.
You would think Denver's offense is going to get better. Even if it's not great, it's going to be better than what it is. Mm-hmm. And honestly, the usage for Javonte so far, I obviously wanted more, but I think it's fine in terms of touches. him getting 17 touches a week, he's at his floor right now for fantasy points.
Yeah.
And he still got 19, which is really good. Obviously, had all to do with his receiving, but still 19 fantasy points. And then 2 back-to-back weeks with 9.
Yeah.
But if 9's your floor, that's an RB1. That's like what an RB1 does, right?
Yeah.
At a floor, like a low-end RB1, but still. And he hasn't had a single touchdown yet this year, not only rushing, but receiving too. He hasn't had a single touchdown, which has to do with the offense. But even like some of the goal line work has gone to Melvin Gordon. So I think Javonte, as the year goes on, he starts scoring touchdowns. He's an RB1 easily.
Yep.
And I would be willing to trade that sort of value to get him, and you could absolutely get him at his price. I think people who drafted him in the second round are a little iffy right now, wishing maybe they took a receiver like AJ Brown or something.
Right.
And I'd be willing to trade a pretty good package for Javonte right now, and I think it's a good time to go get him.
Agreed. The number 2 guy we have, this is a little bit interesting. I actually read an article about him.
Shocked that you put this guy on this list.
At
you
this
had a
point,
chance to draft him. You were out on him
whatever,
all year.
dude. I'm here. I'm here now. I'm accepting defeat. I actually didn't think he was a bad player. I just
old man,
dude. I don't like old men running backs in the 3rd round.
That's
Ezekiel Elliott.
Understandable. Yeah. Right, exactly.
But Leonard Fournette, I think, is a wonderful buy. And it's clear that I read this in an article today, so I'm not going to steal the line, but the article essentially said it's clear that Leonard Fournette is going to get run into the ground until he gets hurt. So opportunity is 1,000% there. He's clearly been Brady's favorite guy at this point. He hasn't produced a huge amount of fantasy points yet. And so I think there's a beneficial factor there for you to run out and grab Leonard Fournette because he's old. And you could use that against him in a trade. You could tell the guy, listen, Leonard Fournette's getting old, not looking great early in the season. I'll take him.
He hasn't been that good. Trade him to me.
So, but I think it's a good opportunity to jump on the bandwagon. Maybe the person who has Leonard Fournette on their team, a little down on him, and they might sell him for a little bit less than normal for somebody that that will help their team. I would go after Leonard Fournette in trades. I think as the season goes along, the opportunity share is just going to be so much that it's going to make those 3rd round running backs look ridiculously bad.
Yeah, and the thing with Fournette too is like very similar to Javonte, where he has a great floor. What he's doing right now, again, is his floor. 15 fantasy points, 9 fantasy points, 12 fantasy points. He's doing that without a single touchdown on the season. And this Buccaneers offense, I have more faith in, will turn it around than Denver, because the Buccaneers offense has been extremely injured so far this year, especially wide receiver, and even suspensions. Mike Evans was suspended the game. Chris Godwin has only played like a half so far this season, not even. I think he got injured in the second quarter in week 1. And then Julio Jones only played in week 1. So you get all 3 of those guys potentially coming back this week. It's going to change how the offense is used, and Fournette is still going to be the workhorse running back.
Yeah.
I mean, his snap percentage has been at least 76% all season. Last week it was at 91%. Like, he's the guy. If you trade for Fournette and you have him on your team, though, I would recommend getting Rachaad White, just because old man running back with this kind of usage is like, it scares me in terms of injuries.
Yeah.
So I would consider definitely a handcuff for Fournette. But as long as they're using him like this, he's gonna start producing really big numbers soon once he gets touchdowns.
Yeah, I totally agree. 3rd and final buy that we have for this week is Jerry Jeudy. Now, I've been trying to get Jerry Jeudy in a few leagues because, like, week 1 he had a big catch that obviously turned into most of the fantasy point production that we got out of Jerry Jeudy for week 1. I think it was, a 50, 60-yard touchdown catch. Yeah,
something like that.
Which is what Jerry Jeudy can do, but he obviously had an opportunity to do some good things for the team, and then week 2 he got hurt in the game. So he played basically 18, I think it was 18% of the snaps in week 1 before he got hurt, and basically it put him in an interesting predicament. He only played 18% of the snaps and had 3 targets.
Right.
So
he had 14% of the snaps.
Oh, he had 14% of the snaps in that game, and he had 3 targets. So they were targeting him early and often in that game, and I feel like they would have continued targeting Jerry Jeudy had he stayed healthy. Last week, it was clear that he was on some form of a snap count. I think he had 66% of the snaps, and he had...
This says 59%.
59%. Man, what am I looking at for numbers?
I'm on Sleeper. I don't know.
I was looking at Sleeper earlier today, man. I'm just mixing numbers up. But anyway...
You're on drugs.
He had around 60% snap percentage on the week, and he had 6 targets. So had he played his full percentage of the time, he probably would have gotten 8-9 targets on the week. So
right.
This is a guy that I still believe in. I'm less concerned about Jerry Jeudy and his upside in the offense, and more concerned about the offense itself being efficient.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
We totally have 2 Denver Broncos on this list, by the way, and that was totally by accident. But I do like...
Was it by accident?
No.
Or is it Broncos country?
But like this begs a bigger question that I asked after Javonte Williams. Like, is there going to be some, like... Is there going to come a point where the Broncos are going to get better offensively and improve, and Russ is going to be the guy that we thought he was going to be? Or is this what we're just getting from Denver? Because, I mean, Denver honestly looked better at times last year offensively with Drew Lock and freaking Teddy
And they were a
Bridgewater.
bottom 10 offense in the league.
And they were a bottom 10 offense in the league than they do right now. And Russ is a better quarterback than both of those guys, even if he's old and regressed. So it's like... I just feel like at some point the tide is going to turn. Denver's going to have a good week. They're going to figure some things out. And when that happens, you're going to want to have Jerry Jeudy on your team. And this is like the buy low of all buy lows. Like, he's not going to be like people. Like, literally, I reached out to a person today to ask them about Jerry Jeudy, and they said, and I quote, "I'm not selling them low." And that's how you know that that is like the thought process right now, because the only offers they're going to get is low ball offers. So... I would go out and try to get Jerry Jeudy.
I'd be willing to trade a real price for Jeudy, though. But I think in some leagues, I'm assuming you asked that in our home league.
Yeah.
In some leagues that I know where people have Jeudy, they're very out on Jeudy, and they're trying to just get rid of him because they didn't even want to draft him in the first place. So they took a flyer on him.
Yeah. And
he has been unproductive in the first 3 weeks. But if you look into it, like. And I was telling you this, I think, before we started recording, like, he had the 20-point week in week 1.
Yeah.
Then he had 3 targets in the first quarter, got injured, and then was on a low snap percentage this past week. So it hasn't really been his fault. The offense is legit concerned, though. That offense is scary and not in a good way. It has been bad. I think, to answer your question of, is the offense going to turn it around, or is it going to stay crappy? I think it's going to be better than this, without a doubt. I don't think it's going to be as good as we might have hoped for. Yeah, and as we thought. But it's going to be better than what it is now. And even if that's the case, like if they're an average NFL offense, that's going to be good for Jeudy. And that's going to have an increase in efficiency for him. And if he has like those 8 to 9 targets like he was on pace for in week 2, and he had 7 in week 1. So if he's in that range and the offense is more efficient, he'll be fine.
So to the, I feel like this should be a discussion that we have after week 4. But on the season so far, I mean, obviously Judy's had some injuries, but who to you has looked better, Jerry Jeudy or Courtland Sutton?
Sutton's definitely the more stable guy. Like, you throw it to him, you need the catch. But Judy's more explosive. There's no doubt about that. I mean, if you watch the Broncos, like, I think Judy's more talented in terms of, like, there's guys in the NFL at the wide receiver position that can just make something happen.
Plays,
I texted you with the Rashad Bateman slant, and that kind of like caught my eye when he took that slant 75 yards in week 2 against the Dolphins. And just how explosive he was, how fast he was, that quick little jittery moves. Like, that's what Jeudy is capable of. And Sutton is not. But Sutton is definitely the more like he's not going to drop many passes. He's a big target, good red zone guy. Like, he's the safer play without a doubt.
Yeah, once they get the offense kind of moving in the right direction, I definitely feel like we're going to start seeing who the real guy should be in the offense at that point. Because I agree with you.
I don't know if like they have it. Like it seems like they really. I mean, I
oh
know
no,
Sutton
there's not. There's always going to be
the
like
guy.
It seems like when
they target both guys.
When I watch the games, I feel like it's just an even target share between the two. Like they're not choosing a guy that's better. It's just at the end of the day, if they're both getting the same amount of targets, who's going to be more efficient with the targets? And it could be.
It's got to be Sutton unless Judy gets those big plays, which will happen on some weeks and some weeks it won't.
Yep. So I mean, and then if the talent really does start showing out for Judy, where he starts getting more comfortable, I think at that point, Judy will overtake these guys. But anyway, let's get to these sells that we have for this week quickly. Number 1 on this list is DK Metcalf. Metcalf has been getting a pretty decent target share. I think it's 10 a game.
Yeah, just about. He had 12 this last week, but before that it was 6 and 7. So
yeah, so I mean he's been in a vicinity where he's getting a majority of the target share. That's for sure. And obviously we know that because Metcalf is the guy. The Seahawks have not floundered completely as people would expect, and I think it's just because they have Tyler Lockett, they have DK Metcalf, they have 2 good running backs, they have an okay offensive line. Like, they have pieces there to make things work.
Sure.
They basically traded situations with the Denver Broncos, where Denver was like in a position to win, but they just need a quarterback. Seattle, I think, is in an okay position. They just need a quarterback, and they don't have one. But Metcalf, I think, is a guy that we were out on. We thought he was going to be a bust. I still continually believe that. He had 17 points this week after having 8 and 7 to start the season. Didn't really do anything different yardage-wise and catch-wise, but he did catch a touchdown, and that changed everything for him. So I think for DK Metcalf, like, you're going to have weeks where you score 17 points, and those weeks are going to be good. And I don't think he's a bad player to have on your team or roster. Like, I'm not saying that he's going to bust out and not have, but like the weeks that he doesn't score a touchdown are going to be 8, 9, 10-point weeks. And then weeks he does score a touchdown are going to be, big 17-point, 18-point games, maybe 20-point games if he really does well. But I think that's the ceiling of DK Metcalf. So based on this 17-point performance this week in PPR, like, I feel like you can take that, sell it to another person, say DK Metcalf is here to stay. It doesn't matter who's quarterback, and send him along his merry way. Because I don't think there's going to be a lot of these 17-point performances.
Right.
Like, I would say, like, if the over/under is 5 for touchdowns on the season for DK, I would say it's right at 5 or under. So, and he just had one of the weeks, so now you only got 3 left. So I would just trade him away now, to a QB needy team. I mean, a QB needy team, a wide receiver needy team, and get him going. So,
yeah, I kind of had the same feelings about it. He does have a good week this week matchup this week against Lions, but yeah, Metcalf, like, when you watch him play, you can tell he's still ridiculously talented, great player, but you're basically banking on Geno Smith having great weeks when you start Metcalf. I mean, this week, 325 yards, 2 touchdowns. Metcalf gets 17 fantasy points. First 2 weeks of the season, Geno Smith doesn't have 200 passing yards, and Metcalf's under 10 fantasy points. So I personally am not going to bank on Geno Smith, which is the whole reason I didn't draft Metcalf in the first place. But he will have some big weeks, and I think you can capitalize on those big weeks by trading them away. So I'm not a big Metcalf guy. Again, long term, sure, dynasty, absolutely. But for redraft, I'm kind of out on him. Yeah. If you can trade him away, get some good value, I think you should probably do that.
Okay, agreed. Next guy that we have is Austin Ekeler, and this is the most interesting one that I feel like that was the one I thought you might disagree with. This is one of those players that I had an opinion on in the off season, and I didn't really share it too much because he's one of the top rated running backs in fantasy football, and I was like, I don't want to do that. You just have an inkling or a feeling that something's going to happen.
Yeah,
and he's not a bad player to have, but at this point in the year, you have to start tempering expectations. It's only been 3 weeks, so obviously things can change, but Austin Ekeler had 20 touchdowns, 20 total touchdowns last year.
Yeah.
And that's not something that Ekeler has typically done. He's usually around 8 to 10. And so without 10 touchdowns, he dropped 60 fantasy points. If you take 10 away, and that changes the numbers entirely. He becomes like an RB 9, 10, or 11 at that point instead of the RB 3 that he got drafted as this year. So I think the excitement for Ekeler in this offense and the way things were going outweighed the actual production that he was going to bring us, and there was going to be regression in the touchdown category. And I think I even said that in the offseason. I don't think he's a bust. I think he's still a great player to have on your team. I still think he can produce. Just what you drafted him as and what he is going to produce for you rest of season are two very different things. And if I'm a fantasy manager and I'm looking at my team and I'm going, okay, I have Austin Ekeler and I'm seeing that he's not producing as much, I would say now is a good a time as ever. Wow, that was so hard to say.
I was going to say I think you had it the first time.
I probably did. But right now is a good a time as ever to take Austin Ekeler, trade him away at that top 3 value, and see if you can get a huge like trade back value. Because I just don't like, if he continues to not play well, every week he doesn't, you lose value. And then he even becomes a buy low. I mean, who knows? Maybe if he keeps sucking, we put him on the buy low category later in the season. But like, I just feel like at this point for Austin Ekeler, like if he keeps going downhill, which is what not downhill, but if he keeps producing at the same level he has been, then the value will keep dropping on a week-to-week basis. And if that happens, the longer you wait, the less you're going to get. So like right now, you can still probably get him for top 5 running back value. And if that's the case, you should definitely do that deal.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you, like, would you trade Ekeler straight up for Barkley? I know you've been iffy about Barkley. Yep, you would, yeah. I think I would too. It might even be too late to do that after this past week, but yeah. So I do think might be a bad week again to put Ekeler on this list just because he's playing Houston this week and he very well could get 20 fantasy points. But the idea would stay the same because I'm with you with Ekeler. And it's clear what the Chargers are. They're trying to use multiple running backs. They're trying to get other guys involved.
Yeah.
They want Ekeler to be more of like just the passing back and who gets a couple carries here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's still good for fantasy, especially in an offense. Like, he's going to start scoring touchdowns. It's similar to Fournette and Javonte in that sense where, like, I don't think he's not going to have any touchdowns. So the touchdown increase is going to happen. So his fantasy point totals will go up. Mm-hmm. But he's not going to have a monster touchdown season. He has been so bad on the ground, so bad, 2.5 yards per carry. So in that sense, it's different. Like, Javonte and Fournette haven't been bad when they've gotten the ball.
Right.
Matter of fact, Javonte has been pretty good. I think he's at like 4.6, 4.7 yards per carry. And I think Fournette has been pretty decent as well. But Ekeler's been really bad on the ground, and his fantasy points are purely coming from receiving for the most part.
Right.
And I don't know if that part is going to change. So even when the touchdowns start coming in, I don't know like how great he's going to be. He's going to have a good floor because of the receiving, but is it 3rd overall pick, or is he in the same tier as like Fournette and Javonte, the guys that we had in our buy list?
Right.
You know, I think he's kind of in the same tier as those guys. Like, I don't know if there's a huge difference between him and Leonard Fournette the rest of the season.
Yeah, which is shocking. I heard a podcast the other day have him at like, they said they would not be shocked if rest of the season he ended up between 12 and 15.
Yeah.
So it's like that's the value at this point. So trading him away as a running back 3 to 5 is definitely something you should do.
Right. I think rest of the season he's still a top 12 running back for me, but he's like, I agree. He's definitely not top 5. That's for sure.
Yeah. So sell Austin Ekeler if you can. It's all right to hold him too if you want to.
Yeah, I haven't been in a dynasty league and like I'm trying to win, so I don't like. I would love to sell him, but I'm in win now mode, so like I'm kind of in a weird spot. But
the teams that drafted Austin Ekeler as the 3rd overall pick, for example, we're in a league. Guy drafted Austin Ekeler, I think, at 3.
Yep.
And right now he's currently 1-2. And his team doesn't look that great. He's dealing with some injuries. And that's a situation where you take Ekeler, you say, all right, let's see what I can get for him and see if you can get somebody to buy him and get some assets on your team that can produce for you now at that value that you have Austin Ekeler at. So, the Austin Ekeler person who drafted them is probably getting screwed right now, and they want to start turning the season around, and that's a perfect opportunity to trade Austin Ekeler away and build your team a little bit further. But anyway, we got one more guy left. He is a sell from last week and continues to be a sell, even though he's the RB4 in PPR. Clyde EdwardsHelaire, who has efficiency-wise been elite. I mean, he's been really good. If the opportunity share for Clyde EdwardsHelaire went up, he would be a top 3 running back. He'd be Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the Chiefs are doing. I don't know what they're doing. They're winning, so I mean, I'm not going to question it. But
he also had 7 carries this week for 0 yards. That's
not great. That's not great.
And did you see there's a video on Twitter that showed the all 22 of one of his runs. He had a wide open hole and he ran right into the back of his offensive line. And I was like, oh gosh.
Yeah,
it was bad.
There's things that you see for Clyde on tape and in game.
He's great in the passing game, and he has
concerning and
some decent runs. But...
No, I know he does have some decent runs. So it's just, but he's inconsistent. But the main concern is he's averaging 12 touches a game, and
right?
That's not good. That's not good. That's not good production, and it doesn't look like it's changing. Jerick McKinnon, every week, Clyde plays well. Jerick McKinnon still outsnaps him, and it's like. They're not giving him more work. They clearly don't care to give him more work. And they want to go with Jerick McKinnon, Isaiah Pacheco, and, Clyde as like a 3-headed, backfield.
Ugh.
And basically what Clyde EdwardsHelaire has essentially become is just a bigger name version of Damian Williams. So, to me, at some point, the efficiency is going to stop. And at some point, you're not going to get a touchdown. And at some point, he's going to stop producing or get hurt. And you're going to end up with a player who is completely unvaluable as a piece. And you're going to be going, oh, what the heck? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I thought I had a top 5 running back, but what I really have is this. And what you really, in fantasy football, it really is just following target share and following workload until you get an opportunity, just see if that guy can produce. And for Clyde, it's just 12 carries a week or 12 opportunities a week is just not going to get it done for your fantasy team. So I would trade him away while he has the top 5 running back status. Obviously you're not going to get that for him, but people are going to want him on their team, especially RB needy teams. So I would take advantage of that and try to get something for him.
Yeah, it's so gross, dude. I mean, 7 carries, 0 yards, 14 fantasy points. It's ridiculous. He hasn't had a snap percentage higher than 44% all season.
Yeah.
McKinnon actually outsnapped him this week.
Mm-hmm.
It's so bad. I would be running around doing everything in my power to try to trade away Clyde right now.
Yeah.
It's just gross. He's in a full RBVC for sure. And yeah, he gets a little bit of receiving work, but he's not like he's getting 10 targets a game. He's just been really efficient with his target because he is a very good pass catcher. So he's been efficient with his targets. 12 targets, 12 catches, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But he has 3 touchdowns in 3 games. It's not looking good. He gets Tampa this week, which has a really good run defense. I would be shocked if Clyde keeps it up this week, and it might be too late to trade him after that. Maybe later on in the season they start giving him more work, but until then, I'm out on Clyde rest of the season.
Yeah.
And he's the RB4.
Oh boy. That's tough. It's just one of those
gross,
weird,
isn't it?
It's one of those weird things where it's how could you, I talked about in, way towards the end of draft season, the last freaking possible chance, my head flipped on Clyde, and it was he could be one of those post-type breakout guys who...
I liked him in like the 6th round.
Oh, yeah. In the 6th round is great. But a post-type breakout guy where he ends up finishing in the top 12 this year, and no one expected or anticipated it because they were so sick of him.
Exactly.
And like, so I was like, why not? Let's give it a shot. I mean, he's clearly gotten the pass catching mark, which is good, but it is disconcerting. Like, he will continue to be on this sells list until something changes. If Kansas City all of a sudden decides to treat him like Kareem Hunt somewhere at the midway point in the season, or the efficiency that he's showing through the air, and not this week, obviously, but that he has shown on the ground, at least in the first 2 games, if that starts to shift in Clyde's favor to the point where Jerick McKinnon becomes a non-essential to the offense and it's just 60, 70, 75% of the snap percentage goes to Clyde, at that point, I'm feeling great about Clyde, and he's fine to hold. But at this point, I don't think that's going to happen. So, just Kansas City's using everybody. They're throwing poop at the wall and hoping it sticks, trying to figure out what they're going to do offensively outside of Travis Kelce. So, maybe we'll be lucky and Clyde will be good.
Who knows?
But anyway, those are your sells. Do you have any more thoughts on any of these guys?
No, I think that's about it.
Okay. There you go. Buys and sells for week 4. Got some hot takes on there. Got some easy ones. Hopefully you can get these guys before we get the buys before we head into the weekend, and sell the guys before we head into the weekend that you need to sell. But anyway, enjoy football this week. See you later, guys.
See you.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.